but what are you basing that off of? Because what you're saying here is actually just a deeply ingrained belief system that's repeated extremely often in recovery spaces, but it's not fact. And while it may be true for some people, it's certainly not true for everyone. Yes, for some people, abstinence is the safest, best path for them, 100%. But to suggest that abstinence is always better, especially for people with a history of substance use disorder, it's just inaccurate. And in fact, abstinence can increase harm in a lot of cases. About the abstinence violation effect, that's a concept that is grounded in substance use disorder psychology, but it's rarely mentioned in treatment or recovery spaces. So this effect happens when somebody is in total abstinence and they have a slip and then they return to chaotic drug use. But the thing is that it's not that they return to chaotic drug use because the substance took over. It's because what they believe that slip means, right? They believe that they blew it, that they failed, that they're going back to zero. They get a case of what we used to call the case of the fuck-its, right? It's not about substance use disorder taking over and taking the wheel. It's about the shame and the fear and the internalized failure kicking in and creating that self-fulfilled prophecy. You're told that one use means that you've lost control. So when it happens, you believe it. You act like you've already failed, like there's no way back. And that belief becomes the thing that drives that spiral. That's not biology. That's not the allergy, the phenomenon of craving taking over. That's programming. You know, in 12-step language, it does get rebranded as the phenomenon of craving. You'll hear people say, once I start, I can't stop. But a lot of time, what they think is their allergy is actually a reaction to shame and fear and the belief that one moment of use defines everything. That's not a craving, that's a conditioned response to a very unforgiving system. The way that abstinence can be harmful for people, a Yale study found that abstinence-based treatment, people who went to abstinence-based treatment were 77% more likely to overdose than those who hadn't. The Recovery Research Institute, they did a survey and they found that 65% of people who identified in recovery had used drugs or alcohol within the past month. And that wasn't like chaotic at all. They were people who identified as in recovery but weren't abstinent. They didn't find any difference in the percentage of people who didn't use anything at all. There was no difference in their health, in their, them going to work or any other measure of life and success. They didn't relapse. They just took a different path and it still worked for them. So no, abstinence isn't automatically better, and it's definitely not the gold standard that so many people think that it is. Healing is not one size fits all. Recovery is not about purity, right? It's about safety. It's about autonomy. It's about building a life that works for you.